Hey, first things first, there'll be a link in the description for the deck list, and I'll also put the deck list up here for people who want to take the deck list and go. Second thing second, this deck list is something that I started to make at the start of set 6, and I played a lot of it, and it was changed quite a fair chunk due to Anthony Carlos, I believe his name is. He has a really well written article about this deck, so I will put that in the description. Please check it out if you want to read it. It's good, I would highly recommend. Third things third, I'm going to put it on the video somewhere around here where you should skip to, because I'm going to give a little brief introduction to myself, what I'm doing and what I intend to do with this channel realistically. So, hello, I'm Kabane. I've been playing card games for about 13 years now, starting with Magic the Gathering, going through Cardfight Vanguard, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Digimon, One Piece, Vice Schwartz, and most recently, Lorcana. I've been playing Lorcana since the first chapter. I've been really enjoying it, tending to play combo decks or mid-range decks. So Ruby Amethyst I have obviously tried, Steel Song, and Jafar Wheel, and the deck that I'll be describing to you today, or talking about today, which is You Came Back mixed with Mufasa, Ruler of Pride Rock. For this channel in particular, I am someone who, honestly, I probably won't put many videos up. I just kind of want to highlight decks that I find fun, enjoyable, and I want to give guides to these kind of things, because it's not often that you come across these kind of builds which are very niche and weird and different, and I kind of want to just highlight on that. I'm not really intending to put out any meta builds or like why you should play this, let's do this. I want to not gatekeep something that I find really enjoyable and I really want other people to try out. A lot of my locals, or a lot of the people that I have seen through store champs since I've been playing this deck, have all wondered about what the deck list is, or you know, has tried it in one way or another because they find the list really interesting. So I just want to highlight on it, and I just want to have a little bit of fun. So without further ado, let's talk about Mufasa. So first things first, we should talk about the combo before we really go into the deck a bit more. So the combo is using Mufasa, Ruler of Pride Rock. If you do not know what he does, he is a legendary, which is an 8 mana 4/9. When you play him, exert all your Inkwell, shuffle it, and randomly get 2 cards from it back to your hand. And then, whenever you quest with him, you may ready all your Inkwell. The idea of that is to utilize You Came Back, which just says ready chosen character. Unlike most other ready character effects, it doesn't come with the caveat that you can't quest with them again, so you can quest with Mufasa again, and then looping this with this and do it again, which reads return an action card from your discard to your hand. And that's pretty much the combo. The idea is you're trying to get 4 copies of this to go off, whether it be 4 copies of itself or a mixture of this and this. So, to go through the deck list, a lot of it is 4s for particular reasons, and we will go through it as we go through the cards. So, Mufasa, Ruler of Pride Rock is a 4. This is pretty obvious because this is your win con. This is the card that will win you the game for the most part, and you need him as soon as possible. So running 4 copies of him just maxes up the consistency. 4 copies of Grandma Tala, Keeper of Ancient Stories. Her on play is when you play her, look at the top 2 cards, add 1 to hand, put 1 to the bottom of your deck. The main reason for this is because of the filter that you get through the deck by going through 2 cards, and also the fact that she can sing How Far I'll Go when we get to that card a bit later. The third card that I run as a 4 is Clarabelle, Contended Wallflower. So originally I actually wasn't running this card, I was running other things, and then I realised how low you get on hand size and the fact that some decks are quite fast. So having this card here is a good capability of getting yourself card advantage to some extent, whilst also maintaining a board to fight certain cards on the field if you need to. The next card we run as a 4 is Alice, Savvy Sailor. She has Ward herself, she is a 1/4 that quests for 2, but the important part of her text is when she quests, you choose another character, usually Mufasa, and you give it 1 additional lore for each time it quests, and ward until the start of your next turn, which is the big part that you want to know. Being able to protect Mufasa correctly is a vital point to how this deck plays, and being able to understand when to do that is a good understanding of how to play against particular meta decks. The next card, Kick Cloud Kicker. On play, return an opposing character with 2 or less to the player's hand. You don't have to do it, but you can do it sometimes. The only reason he's here as a 3-of is because he is only here to deal or delay other decks. There are certain other decks which will bypass Kit, but being able to use this to play against Ruby Amethyst and decks like that is a huge tempo swing in the early game to allow you to get to Mufasa faster before they can quest out. The next cards we run are Tippo. It's pretty simple. We need ramp. We need to get to Mufasa fast, and he also inks uninkable cards. With the amount of uninkable cards in this deck, it's a good starting point to just put ink in. The next card is Ursula, Deceiver. So, she is there to disrupt your opponent's hand. If you can disrupt Ruby Amethyst by cutting out their card draw, if you can disrupt the Be Prepared, they are huge threats for this deck, and it's just a very normalized thing really at this point in green to be able to disrupt pretty much any deck. Moving on to some items, we run 4 copies of Fishbone Quill and 4 copies of Popsicle. So a couple of things you might notice. One, why I'm not running any higher rims, it's because you have to rely on pretty much only cracking Popsicle. A lot of the time you will be putting ink in from Fishbone Quill, and if you don't draw Popsicle, you're kind of just sitting duck when you hit about 6 or so ink, especially when the times that you just want to slam into Mufasa on turn 5. So this is why I've taken him out initially. I did try him. I enjoyed him for the time that I did try him, but I had come to realise that after I made this deck change of changing Hiram to something like Clarabelle, that it really secured a lot of things to do, or a lot of saving points for more aggressive decks, especially Ruby Amethyst as well. So, the next half of the deck is primarily actions, honestly. So the obvious ones are 4 copies of Do It Again and 4 copies of You Came Back. The reason why we run 4 copies of both of these is because these are your combo piece. This, including with Mufasa, is your main victory point. So you need to see it. You need to see it no matter what. I run a one-off copy of You're Welcome. The reason for this is that oftentimes you'll end up getting into these matches where you just have to get rid of something and you just can't help it sometimes, and that is where Your Welcome comes into play. It's just on usage, shuffle back a chosen character, item or location into the player's deck, and that player draws 2 cards. Sometimes it's used to get rid of your own stuff as well. Being able to dig further and extending your combo, especially with Mufasa, using it on stuff like Popsicle is a really nice usage as well, so it does happen. To also go through the deck, which will be most of the rest of these cards, if not all of them at this point, we run 4 copies of Develop Your Brain. On usage, look at top 2, add 1, put the rest to the bottom of the deck. Visions of the Future, top 5, add 1, put the rest onto the bottom of the deck in any order. And then Sail the Azurite Sea, which is a ramp spell, so ramping and being getting more ink quickly, where when you use it, you can draw a card and you may ink another card from hand. So I'll go through it a little bit later, but there is an importance of when to use this and when to use Tippo. So we'll go through that a little bit later for you guys. The last thing is 4 copies of How Far I'll Go. The main reason I run this is because there will be certain times in the game where you just go, okay, turn 4 or on 4 ink, I'm just going to play this, and then if I have an inkable in hand, I will just ink it. If I don't, then at the time, then you can use this to try and dig into it to just put it in. So Yeah. Its effect is, when you use it, look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put 1 into your Inkwell as exerted, and 1 into your hand. So, to essentially go through and give you some tidbits and pretty much ideas of what you should do with the deck, or such, or like main key elements that you need to know. The key elements for this deck is that this deck plays very, very differently to any deck I've seen within Lorcana. A large part of Lorcana is understanding when to challenge units, when to extend, and when not to extend. And this is what this deck really provides, as an understanding of when to play Mufasa, when to attack your opposing characters, when to not attack your opposing characters, which you'd be surprised about because you'll be doing that a lot. A huge thing that I've come to realise when playing this deck is that the less that you attack characters, the more characters you actually play around. So, for example, let's say I want to play Mufasa down, and I want to make sure that my opponent, who will probably be playing something like Ruby Sapphire, does not ice block him and kill him with Madame Medusa. So you play Alice if they play this combo. So you use Alice to quest and give him ward until the start of your next turn after you have played him, so he can't be targeted. But the other thing is, if I have Alice targeted, exerted, then they could just run into her with other characters and then kill Mufasa with Ladies Tremaine. So another big idea is another big thing to understand is keeping characters alive on your board is very necessary for keeping Mufasa alive. Understanding how to play against Mufasa, or how to play the Mufasa down with keeping him protected from pretty much anything that's out there, is a huge part of this gameplay. You need to know when to play him, and you need to know where to play him. Sometimes you are just going to slam him on turn 5 or turn 6, as that is the common point of when you're going to get Mufasa out. So just get used to some of those matchups, pretty much. To start off with opening hands, stuff that you want to see, a lot of stuff that you actually don't mind seeing are non-combo pieces, because a lot of the deck actually digs through for another thing. I personally prioritize a normal, nice ramp. If I end up seeing Develop Your Brain and Popsicle in the same hand, I will often ink the Popsicle and use Develop Your Brain, because I am probably not going to be trading into characters until much later on in the game, because you just want to dig into your pieces. You want to dig into your You Came Backs, you want to dig into your Do It Agains, because that is how you win the game. So, for mulligans, pretty much the obvious ones is try and keep something that is inkable within your hand. Try and have something that ramps, so Seldage Right C or Tippo. Either one of these is very dependent on what you are playing against. If you're playing against Ruby Amethyst, please look at trying to keep Tippo. If you're playing against something more slower, for example Ruby Sapphire, please try and keep Seldage Right C, as that'll give you more time to go through your deck, unlike the other pre-existing decks. So the cards that are notable for each matchup, or what you want to kind of do against each matchup, going from one to another. We'll start off with something like Blurple, which does have some of the same, or most of the same things that you'd expect in Ruby Amethyst. So, the first things with Blurple, as I've mentioned before, the key cards are obviously using Alice to protect Mufasa, and as they can't then target Mufasa with Elsa, Let It Go, or Hades, which they would normally attempt to do. I don't believe that there is anything in their deck, unless they decide to run down the rabbit hole for this really weird reason, especially with the kind of deck that you're playing. You're not going to be seeing this in like a meta build. You're not going to be seeing this as like the threatening deck of the game kind of thing, right? So you very much want to basically just try and keep the Mufasa alive with just ward. That's absolutely fine. For playing against Ruby Amethyst, the main cards that you want to use are obviously these, and you want to use Kit Cloud Kicker. A huge thing with this is that their Flynns, Flynn Frenemy is a very, very big problem card with this deck. They can out-tempo you, they can outspeed you, so the idea is if you can go first and on turn 3 play Cloud Kicker after they've played their Flynn, you are causing a massive amount of disruption where they have to play 2 turns behind, or 1 turn behind roughly. So try and sandbag into Kit if you can against Ruby Amethyst. If you can't, then I would recommend trying to look for cards like the Clarabelle, the Grand Matala, and understanding where you want to, pretty much where you want to put your hand in. You want to then make sure that you don't have too many cards in hand that your characters can't be above the Sisu level 3, the Sisu 3 cost, that gains power for each item in your hand, for each card in your hand, and you want to make sure that you have enough characters on the board so they can't just Tremaine you, or that it makes it difficult for them to actually beat down Mufasa. A notable thing as well is sometimes it's absolutely fine to slam the Mufasa down and see how they deal with it. A lot of the time you can go quite quick with this deck, so you will end up having games where you go, okay, turn 1, either develop your brain or just ink. Turn 2, Tippo, so the Azurite Sea. Turn 3, either Grand Matala or How Far I'll Go. Turn 4, How Far I'll Go, hopefully into another How Far I'll Go. And then turn 5, playing Mufasa, or using Fishbone Quill to essentially speed up the process as well. I haven't had it on a consistent basis of getting him out on turn 4, obviously, but the fact that you can speed through this deck and get to it before they hit 6 ink, sometimes like 5 ink, so they have to force down an Elsa, is a very notable thing as well, as a lot of their characters will have to trade into Mufasa and evidently cause a huge disruption in your opponent's gameplay. Sometimes it is okay to be a little bit greedy. I have had games before where I would do the Mufasa combo and not have enough lore, or just not have the capability to continue, so I would slam down a second Mufasa if I had it in hand, and that way they have to deal with not only 1 but 2 4/9s, and especially with the fact that you will likely, if you don't have the combo, likely draw cards that can help you fish into it. It basically becomes a big threat. It becomes the threat of the board, and if they cannot deal with it on their 6 ink, then they are likely to be finding it difficult to win the game from that point. Going into other decks, Purple Steel, you have to trade into Smees. You have to understand when to trade into Smees, and you have to understand when to trade effectively. It is fine to trade in with the Tippo that you play, due to the fact that they will be losing out on life anyway, so you give them 1 less turn to actually quest with. The main thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't leave characters alive that they can run Cowhorn into, as that will speed up their process. If you end up coming across them slamming down Gantu, try to use things like You're Welcome, and try to play Mufasa down. They can outfast you, so just be careful with that. With Hyper Aggro, you want to basically sandbag as many characters as possible. If you can turn to Tippo, turn 3 Grand Matala, you should be able to deal with a multitude of different cards, and hopefully before you can get Mufasa down and get going before they can beat you with that as well. The other matchups to talk about, Red-Blue. The thing with Red-Blue is it's a slow matchup. You surprisingly have a bit more of a favourable matchup, as you can rush through the deck as fast as possible and they have to come up with an answer, or else you are likely to be forcing game pretty much every single turn from after 5, which is a big thing as well. Is it as fast as Hyper Aggro? Sometimes, yeah. Is it as easy to be as fast as Hyper Aggro? Sometimes, no. So an understanding is when to play certain cards and when it is most effective to play certain cards. If you're slamming down Mufasa with no board state, you either have to be going for a desperate play, or you have to be confident that they do not have a Tremaine or something in their hand. So just be wary of these things. Obviously Ursula helps you with hand knowledge. That is a huge thing to understand. Understanding what your opponent has in hand will help you play how you want to play. Other things to talk about as well in terms of deck matchups: Green Steel. Green Steel is a kind of a slow burn where you need to know what to discard. Sometimes it's fine to discard the actions. Sometimes it's fine to permanent Inkwell as well if you just need to play your Mufasa down. Pete is a problem indeed. It is a card that if you're going to be playing against, which you probably will be, seeing with how much steel there is out there, just at that point try and force them to play a Pete. If they play Pete and they can't win out the next turn, play down another Mufasa and try and force them to play another Pete, pretty much. That is a huge thing that you want to do as well. If they can't get that Pete recurring, you are likely going to be winning just off the back foot of Mufasa going and going and going and going and going. The other deck that I would like to talk about that I have tested against is Steel Song. Steel Song has quite a slower matchup, and they are reliant on getting certain cards. You can disrupt it, and you can force it that your Mufasa doesn't die with obviously Alice. So don't be too worried about that matchup. Just make sure that they don't outspeed you is pretty much the main thing. I did have my store champs, and I don't believe there are any other decks that I have played against in terms of the meta that I can really give you advice about. I guess the closing thoughts of this are: is the deck good? Not really. Is the deck fun? 100%. Please give it a go. Try something different with this kind of build and just have a bit of a laugh, because sometimes playing the more interesting and difficult decks to achieve game winning states with are the games that are more satisfying, and I think the games that do open up a lot more insight to how you play the game and understanding how the game is played. So yeah, that's pretty much like what I wanted to talk about. I hope you enjoyed, and as usual, have a wonderful day.